Hello, my name is Catherine and I'm an instructor here at Clemson University for the shotgun program, and today we're going to go over our safety tips at the range. It's important to understand that everybody is in charge of safety while we're here at the range. Here you're not going to pull a hamstring, but if anything does go wrong, it's going to be something horrific and unchangeable. First thing to understand is that this is not a dangerous sport, and as long as you're paying attention to the safety rules, what you're doing and the people around you, everything should be great during the semester at Clemson. Our number one priority is to make sure that everybody is safe during their semester on the Clemson field. And then our number two most important priority is to make sure that we're having fun in this really fun outdoor shotgun class. The number one rule that we stick to while we're talking about safety is going to be an acronym. It's M-A-T-T, MAT. So when you go out on the field, you're going to have a gun that might look like this, and it might look like a different one. But it's important to know that the muzzle, the business end of the gun, is pointed in a safe direction at all times. At Clemson, this direction is always going to be in the air or out downrange. You never want to point this gun down unless it's an over and under like this one, and you've opened it and pointed it at the ground this way. This way we can all see that it's unloaded and that there is no harm to anybody's feet underneath it. So that's the M, muzzle. A is for action. This is the action of the gun. For this over and under, we have a break action. And that means that it's going to break in half, because when this gun is broken open, it is essentially a watch and two barrels. This way we can tell, again, that that gun is unloaded and there's nothing to be worried about. This is the second type of gun that we'll use while shooting at Clemson University. It's called an automatic action, meaning it'll close automatically and you hit this button. It's important that you don't have it closed while you're holding it at Clemson, and that you make sure it's open the whole time so that we can see that this action is open and it's unloaded. It's important also that when you're holding this gun, that you don't hold it with that action held towards you, because when the action's towards you, we can't see if it's unloaded or not. So you need to make sure that that action is out and open so that we can make sure that that gun is safe, even if it is already pointed in a safe direction. The next item is T. T for trigger. Your finger should never be on the trigger unless you are on the pad and ready to shoot. When you're holding the gun, sometimes it's natural to put your finger there when you put your hand on the pistol grip, which is that grip here. So the best thing to do is to put your finger next to the trigger instead of putting it in this trigger guard. That way you can't accidentally pull the trigger when you don't mean to. Then once you step up on the pad, you can load the gun, get ready for your shot, put your finger on the trigger and call for the bird. And only then will you be able to call and shoot that target. One thing that we don't rely on here at Clemson is the use of a safety. It's really common practice to use them while you're in a hunting situation, basically so that if you trip or drop the gun, it doesn't fire if it's already loaded. But because we have an unloaded gun until we are ready to shoot, we basically don't have to worry about the safety. It's important to know that it is a mechanical function and that mechanical things can break. So it's important that we don't ever rely on them and always have that gun pointed in a safe direction, with the action open, our finger off the trigger, and being aware of where it's pointed until we're ready to shoot a target. The next T is target. And target is going to be being aware of what's around you. What is the target you're shooting? Out here, it's going to be little clay pigeons flying through the air, always downrange. And you want to make sure that every time you shoot a target, that there is nothing beyond your target. So sometimes when we're at the range, for example, there will be deer or even cows in the background. So if you do see those, you want to say cease fire and then make sure that everything's safe so that we don't kill a little innocent animal. Also, if you're on one of the far ends of the field and there's somebody loading a house on the other field, they might be in your line of sight. So again, you'll want to make sure that you point your gun back up into the air, make sure that everything's safe, and you can even tell them kind of meanly to get off the field and get out of your line of sight. going to talk about is range commands. We have two main range commands here at Clemson. One is going to be when the instructor tells you that the range is red or ready to fire. They might also just say, you can shoot now. Most of the time, your main command that you can shoot is going to be your instructor handing you a shell once you stand up on the pad, already ready to shoot. They're going to show you what that target is, tell you how to shoot it, make sure that you can operate the gun, and then they'll hand you a shell, and that is your permission to shoot. So then they'll help you load the gun, and then you can get ready to shoot that target.
And speaking of shells, there are 4 different types of gauges that are commonly used in shotgun, but we'll only be focusing on 2 during the semester. The one on the far left is 12 gauge, and the yellow one is 20 gauge. You can see that they are very close in size, which is why the 20 gauge shell is a yellow color, so that you know not to put it into a 12 gauge barrel. As I'm showing here, you can see that that 12 gauge fits snugly into the 12 gauge barrel, but that the 20 gauge would slide right down to the barrel. It'll stop about where you would want to put your fingers, and if you were to load another shell behind it that was the correct gauge, it would turn it into a pipe bomb and actually blow up in that banana peel shape that you see in a cartoon.
The next range command is called ceasefire. And it's important to know that anyone can call a ceasefire, and it's never a bad thing to say it. Even if you're not sure if something's unsafe, it's better to be safe than sorry. So a ceasefire, if you hear it, it means to cease fire. So if you're on the pad trying to shoot, you want to make sure that your gun is pointed in a safe direction, you get your instructor to help you unload it, and then you step off the pad and look around you to make sure that everything around you is safe. It's always important that you make sure that you're safe before you step back and make sure that everybody else is safe. And during that time, the other students and the instructor will be making sure that whatever thing that is unsafe becomes safe. It's never embarrassing to think that something's unsafe and call a ceasefire. If you call it and it's a mistake, at least we double check to make sure that everything's fine. Once you cross the road, you'll have to have 2 pieces of equipment besides your gun in order to be able to shoot. One of them is going to be your earplugs, and the other are going to be your safety glasses. We'll be providing them to you at the beginning of each class, and they will be sanitized before you are using them. You'll want to make sure that you have your earplugs because your hearing isn't permanent. The decibel level at the range is not too bad, but once you have the overexposure to that really loud sound, it can really start to damage your hearing. So your earplugs are important to make sure that that blocks out that noise and prevents damage to your earplugs, because once the damage is done, you're going to lose some of your hearing. I've been shooting for over 20 years, and I wear my earplugs every single time, and I still have a little bit of hearing loss. So it is really important that you're not taking your earplugs out as soon as you step off the pad, and that you have them in at all times when you're shooting at Clemson.
In other words, don't be like Neville. Don't neglect your earmuffs.
You might ask, what do I need eye protection for? And that's actually because little pieces of target can come off after you've shot the target and hit your face. And a little 1 inch by 1 inch piece of target can be detrimental to your eye health. It can actually take out your eye and cause permanent damage, so you want to make sure that you block it with these glasses. Another thing that can happen is that little pieces of pellets from the shot itself will actually ricochet off the targets and bounce back into your face. And while they're not going to hurt you too bad, once it gets into your eye, that can be a very uncomfortable situation. Our last item is just medical issues. When you come out to the range, it's important to understand that leisure skill activities can be physically intensive. And while we're not running a mile or threatening to pull our hamstrings during this class, it's important to understand that it is really hot outside and there's virtually no shade out here. So if you're coming out, it's really important that you eat breakfast, have water, and let me know if there's any medical issues that you have that I should be aware of. The ones that come to mind are if you have problems with blood sugar or blood pressure and may faint or need some kind of assistance like glucose or glucagon during class. Also, if you are allergic to stinging insects, we try to spray for them, but it's an outside class and I can't guarantee that there won't be any wasps or bees during your semester. If you do need epinephrine after a sting, it's important to let me know where you keep it so that if I do need to help administer it, that I can locate it while we're calling for medical attention. Well, that's it for all our safety rules at Clemson. Thank you so much for paying attention, and we look forward to a fun and safe semester. Go Tigers!